My aunt looked at the keychain in my hand and said, "What keychain?" The room went still. Not quiet. Still. My mother's smile held for half a second too long. My father stopped chewing. My brother looked down at his plate like he had suddenly become very interested in mashed potatoes. I was standing at the dining room table on my 18th birthday, holding a little silver keychain with a plastic initial on it. The kind you buy near a checkout register for $2 and forget by the time you reach the parking lot. I had just thanked my aunt for it, because it was the only gift on the table, and because I had already learned that gratitude was safer than surprise. My aunt didn't sit down. She kept looking at the keychain, then at me, then at my parents, slowly, carefully, the way adults look when they already know something is wrong and are deciding whether to say it in public. "I spent $300,000 on her gift," she said. "No one moved. Not my mother, not my father, not me. $300,000. The number did not sound real in that room. Not with paper plates and grocery store cake and the same dining room light fixture that had flickered every winter since I was 12. My mother let out a small laugh. Too quick, too bright. "Oh, Vivian," she said. "Not now." My aunt didn't smile. "What did you tell her?" she asked. My father reached for his water glass. His hand was steady. That was the part I remember most. Steady. Like this was not the first time he had practiced calm inside a lie. I was still holding the keychain. My name started with E, but the letter on it was wrong. I noticed that then. Not because it mattered, because once the room changed, everything became overly sharp. The frosting line on the cake, the scratch on the wood table, my brother's wedding ring tapping lightly against his fork. "I think there's some confusion," my mother said. That was always her first move. Not denial, confusion. A softer word, one that bought time. I looked at my aunt, then at my parents, then back at the keychain in my hand. And for the first time in my life, I had the strange feeling that something had been taken from me long before I ever knew to look for it. That morning before any of this happened, I had been in the kitchen frosting my own cake, not because I wanted to, because no one else had. My mother had bought a plain sheet cake the day before and left it in the fridge in the box. No candles, no decoration, just white frosting and blue trim from the grocery store bakery. "People don't need all that extra stuff at 18, she'd said. 16 is the big birthday, 18 is mostly paperwork. That was how she talked about milestones when they were mine, practical, flattened, as if acknowledging too much would make me difficult. I stood there in socks and an old college sweatshirt smoothing over the part where the plastic bakery lid had smudged the frosting. My mother came in, opened the dishwasher, and started unloading plates. "You don't have to fuss over it," she said. I didn't answer. Because if I said I'm not fussing, I'm trying to make it look like someone planned this, then the morning would turn into something I didn't have the energy for. "I invited Aunt Vivian," she added after a minute. That made me look up. "She's coming." My mother shrugged. She said she might stop by. Might stop by. My aunt never lived close. She was my father's older sister. No children, never married. Lived 2 states away, and worked in private wealth management, which my mother described to church friends as some kind of finance thing, with the same tone people used for weather that didn't concern them directly. She sent cards every year, always on time, always with neat handwriting and a note that sounded like she assumed I had a future. That alone made her unusual in my family. When I was 12, she had asked what I wanted to study someday. My mother answered for me before I could speak. She changes her mind every week. I remember Aunt Vivian looking at me instead. "Still," she said, "I'd rather hear this week's answer from her." No one had ever corrected my mother that gently, or that clearly. I said I wanted to study economics. My mother laughed, a small sharp sound. Aunt Vivian didn't. She asked why, and I answered. I thought about that morning as I spread frosting over someone else's carelessness. About how rare it had been to be addressed as if my thoughts were not an interruption. At 18, you notice things like that more, because by then the pattern has become difficult to ignore. My older brother had received a used truck on his 18th birthday. My mother cried when she handed him the keys. My father shook his hand like they were closing some generational contract. When I turned 16, I got a planner. Leather. Monogrammed wrong. "Because you're always so scattered," my mother said. I wasn't scattered. I was quiet. In my family, those often got confused. My brother needed support, they said. He had a lot of pressure. He was figuring things out. He made mistakes. He had potential. I was easier, self-sufficient, good in school, low maintenance. That was supposed to sound like praise. In practice, it meant there was less guilt attached to giving me less. By noon, my mother had set out the plates and my father had gone to pick up my brother and his wife. No balloons, no presents visible, no awkward hiding spots in closets. I noticed that, and then immediately felt ashamed for noticing. That was another family habit. You feel the slight, then you punish yourself for being able to feel it. Around 2:30, my aunt arrived. She walked in carrying a flat envelope and a bottle of wine my parents would later call too expensive after they had already opened it. She hugged me first, not lightly, not performatively, like someone greeting a person, not an event. "Happy birthday, Ellie," she said. No one in my family called me Ellie, only her. "Thank you," I said. And for one embarrassing second my throat tightened. She stepped back and looked at me. "You look taller." "I'm not. You look steadier then." That made me smile. My mother appeared in the doorway with the cake lighter in her hand. "We're all here," she said. "Let's just do this before dinner gets cold." That was how the day moved in my family, as if every tenderness had to be hurried past before it became expensive. We sat, we sang. My father's voice barely registered. My brother's wife filmed part of it for social media. I blew out the candles my aunt had quietly taken from her purse because no one else had bought any. Then my mother handed me the small wrapped box. "This came earlier," she said. No eye contact, no story, just placement. I unwrapped it in 3 seconds. The keychain sat in a bed of tissue paper that had already been torn once and folded back in. I remember thinking it looked repackaged. I remember also deciding that thought was ungracious. So I smiled, turned toward my aunt, and said, "Thank you. It's really thoughtful." Then she asked, "What keychain?" And nothing in my life felt the same after that. My aunt didn't raise her voice. She didn't need to. "What keychain?" she repeated. She held my gaze this time. Not my parents'. Mine. As if the answer mattered more to me than to anyone else in that room. I looked down at the small metal loop resting against my palm. The letter was still wrong. I noticed that again, more clearly, like my brain was trying to anchor itself to something simple. "I thought," I said, then stopped, because I didn't know what I thought anymore. My mother stepped in. Smooth, fast. "That must have been something from earlier," she said. "We had a few things come in, a few things." I glanced at the table. There were no other boxes, no wrapping paper, no signs of a few things, just plates, cake crumbs, and the keychain. My aunt didn't look at my mother. She reached into her bag, took out a thin folder, set it on the table, carefully. Not aggressively, but deliberately enough that everyone saw it. "This is what I sent," she said. My father leaned back slightly in his chair. Not a big movement, just enough to create distance. "I think we should talk about this later," he said. "Another family move. Delay, relocate, reduce exposure." My aunt shook her head once. "No," she said. "Not later." Then she opened the folder. I didn't move closer. I didn't need to. The paper inside was thick, official, structured in a way that didn't belong to our dining room. There were columns, numbers, dates, my name, spelled correctly, for once. "I set up a custodial investment account for her when she was 14, my aunt said. Her tone was even, professional, the way people speak when emotion would weaken the clarity of what they're saying. It was intended for education and early financial stability. I stared at the page. 14. That meant 4 years. 4 years of something existing in my name that I had never been told about. That account has been active, she continued, and managed. She didn't say by who, She didn't need to. The room already knew. My mother folded her hands together, too tightly. We were handling it, she said. For her. Handling. Another soft word. My aunt finally looked at her. How silence. My father cleared his throat. It's still there, he said. We didn't do anything inappropriate. Inappropriate. Legal language creeping into a family conversation. That was new. I felt something settle in my chest. Not anger, not yet. Structure. The beginning of understanding. My aunt turned the page. There was a second sheet. More numbers. Lower this time. Different dates. Highlighted entries. Withdrawals. Large ones. Repeated. My eyes moved across them slowly, because rushing would make it harder to process. Where did it go? She asked. Not loudly, not accusing. Just directly. My mother looked at my father looked at the table. My brother shifted in his seat. His ring tapped against his glass again. Faster now. It was used, my mother said. Finally, for the family. That word landed differently now. Family. As if that explained ownership. As if that erased lines. I felt the keychain press into my palm. The edges were sharper than I remembered. For what my aunt asked. My father answered this time. Mortgage. A beat. Some medical expenses. Another beat. And helping your brother get started. Helping my brother. I didn't look at him. I didn't need to. I already knew what that meant. His business. The one everyone said was a risk worth taking. The one my parents had sacrificed a lot to support. I swallowed. Not hard. Just enough to stay present. You didn't tell her, my aunt said. It wasn't a question. My mother's voice came out softer now. Defensive, but quieter. We were going to. When my aunt asked. After she turned 18, my father said. That's today, my aunt replied. No one spoke, because time had run out, and everyone knew it. I looked down at the paper again, at my name, at the numbers, at the withdrawals that slowly carved something down without my knowledge. 4 years. I thought about every conversation I'd had about college, every time my mother said, we'll figure it out, every time my father said you might need loans, every time I had adjusted my expectations to match what I thought we had. Not what I actually had. Or had, at one point. I placed the keychain on the table, gently, not as a gesture, as a correction. My aunt watched me, not with pity, with attention. Did you know about this? I asked my parents. My voice sounded normal. That surprised me. No, my mother said quickly. I mean, not like this. Not like this. Another vague boundary. My father leaned forward. We did what we thought was best, he said. For everyone. There it was again. Everyone. The word that dissolves individual ownership. The word that justifies redistribution. The word that makes taking feel like responsibility. I nodded once, slowly. Not agreement. Acknowledgement. I wasn't included in everyone, I said. My brother finally spoke. It wasn't like that, he said. I looked at him then, just for a second. How was it, I asked. He didn't answer, because anything he said would have required choosing a version of truth, and that was not something our family did out loud. My aunt closed the folder, not abruptly, carefully, as if she was sealing something that had already been exposed. I need to review the account formally, she said. I'll be contacting the firm. My mother straightened. That's not necessary, she said. We can handle this internally. Internally, meaning privately, meaning without consequence. My aunt shook her head. No, she said. This isn't internal. Then she looked at me. This is yours. That was the first time anyone had said that word in relation to me all afternoon. Yours. Not ours. Not the family's. Not something to be managed. Mine. I felt something shift again. Not upward, not explosive. Just into place. I didn't know I said, more to myself than anyone else. I know, my aunt replied. and for the first time since she walked in, her voice softened. Not weak, just human. "We're going to fix it," she added. "Not dramatic, not loud, just certain." Across the table, my mother looked at me, really looked, as if she was trying to find the version of me that would accept this quietly, the one who wouldn't make this complicated, the one who would understand. I didn't offer her that version, because for the first time I understood something clearly. This wasn't a misunderstanding, it wasn't confusion, it was a decision. Made repeatedly, over time, without me. And now that I knew, I wasn't sure I could ever go back to not knowing. That night after everyone left the house didn't feel different. That was the unsettling part. The same dishes in the sink, the same chairs pushed slightly out of place, the same faint smell of frosting and roasted chicken lingering in the air. Nothing in the physical space reflected what had just happened. I stood at the kitchen counter, hands resting on the edge. My mother moved around me, loading the dishwasher, stacking plates. Normal movements. "That didn't need to happen like that," she said. Not to me. More to the room. I didn't answer. Because I was trying to understand something more precise than blame. Not what they did. Why it felt so expected. My father came in a few minutes later. He didn't sit. Just stood near the doorway. "We were going to tell you," he said. I nodded. "When?" He hesitated. "Soon. Soon." A word that stretches until it disappears. I turned slightly. Looked at him. "It started when I was 14, I said. "Yes." "And you didn't think I needed to know for 4 years. It was complicated," he said. I held his gaze. "No," I said. "It wasn't." Silence. Not tense. Just exposed. My mother closed the dishwasher. "You're not seeing the full picture," she said. I almost smiled. "That's the problem," I replied. She stepped closer. "We had responsibilities," she said. "We had bills. Your brother needed help. We were trying to keep everything stable." Stable. Another word that sounds neutral until you see what it costs. "And I didn't," I asked. She paused. Not because she didn't understand. Because she did. "You were doing fine," she said. There it was. The logic. You were fine. So we took from you. I nodded slowly. "That makes sense," I said. My father shifted. "That's not what she means." "It is," I said. I picked up the keychain from the counter, turned it over in my fingers. The wrong letter again. Still wrong. "This is what you gave me today," I said. No accusation. Just fact. My mother's voice tightened. "That's not fair." Nah, I set the keychain down. "You're right," I said. "It's not." Another silence. This one heavier. "I'm not saying we handled it perfectly," my father said. "But we were doing what we thought was best for the family." I looked at him. Carefully. "I think you were doing what was easiest for the family," I said. He didn't respond. Because he knew the difference. That night I went to my room. Sat on the edge of my bed. The same room I had grown up in. Same furniture, same layout. But it felt smaller. Not physically. In meaning. I thought about the past 4 years. Every conversation about money. Every time I had adjusted my expectations. Every decision I had made based on what I believed we didn't have. And I realized something uncomfortable. I had been participating in a version of reality that wasn't real. Not because I was naive, again because I trusted the structure I was in. That trust wasn't just broken. It had been used. The next morning my aunt called. "Can you meet me?" she asked. "Yes." We met at a small office building downtown. Not corporate, not intimidating. Just professional. She was already there when I arrived. A folder in front of her. Same one from yesterday. But thicker now. "Sit," she said. I did. She didn't start immediately. She let the room settle. Then she opened the folder. "There's more detail here," she said. She turned the pages toward me. Statements, transaction histories, dates. Clear. Not interpretive. "I requested full access this morning," she said. I leaned forward slightly. "Read." Not quickly. Because I didn't want to miss anything. "Withdrawals. Not one time, not two." Repeated. Over years. Amounts that matched things I remembered. My brother's business launch. Home renovations. Medical bills my parents had discussed at dinner like they were sudden. They weren't sudden. They were funded. From me? I sat back. Not dramatically. Just enough to breathe. "They didn't take it all at once," my aunt said. "No." "They took it in pieces," she added. I nodded. That made it worse. Because it meant it wasn't desperation. It was strategy. "I should have checked sooner," she said. I looked at her. "You trusted them," I said. She held my gaze. "Yes." A pause. "Then, that was my mistake." I shook my head slightly. "No," I said. "Because I understood something now. The mistake wasn't trust. It was giving control without verification." She closed the folder. Not abruptly, but deliberately. "There are legal options," she said. I didn't react immediately. Not because I didn't understand what that meant. Because I did. "It's your account," she continued. "You're 18 now. Control shifts to you." That word again. Control. Not abstract anymore. Real. I looked at the folder. Then back at her. "What happens next?" I asked. She didn't hesitate. "That depends," she said. On what?" She met my eyes. "On whether you're ready to stop letting them decide what you deserve." The room was quiet. And for the first time since yesterday, I realized this wasn't just about what they had taken. It was about whether I would continue allowing it. I didn't decide that day. That surprised me. I thought I would feel something clear, anger, urgency, a need to act. Instead, I felt still. Not empty. Measured. My aunt didn't push. She closed the folder, left it on the table between us. "You don't have to rush," she said. I nodded. "I know." She leaned back slightly. "Take a few days," she added. I looked at the papers again. At the numbers. At the pattern that had been invisible until now. "I already know," I said. She didn't respond. Just watched. "I'm not going to argue with them," I continued. A small pause. "Good," she said. That caught me off guard. "You don't need to convince people who already know what they did," she added. I held her gaze. "And what do I need to do?" She didn't answer immediately. "Because the answer mattered. You need to stop participating in the version of reality they created for you," she said. That landed. Not sharply. Clearly. I looked down at the folder again, then closed it. Not because I was done. Because I had seen enough for now. That afternoon I went back home. Same house, same driveway. Nothing looked different. But I noticed something new. Every part of it had been maintained by decisions I hadn't been included in. Inside, my mother was at the kitchen table. Bills spread out. Calculator beside her. She looked up when I walked in. "You were gone a while," she said. "I met with Aunt Vivian." A pause. Not surprise. Recognition. "She called my mother," said. I nodded. "She's overreacting," she added. I pulled out a chair, sat down across from her. "She's not," I said. My mother pressed her lips together. "You don't understand everything that's involved," she said. I almost smiled. Not because it was funny, because it was familiar. "I understand enough," I replied. My father walked in then. Stopped when he saw us sitting there. "What's going on?" he asked. I looked at him. "I'm taking control of the account," I said. Silence. Not confusion. Not surprise. Just impact. "You don't need to do that," he said. I tilted my head slightly. "I do," I replied. He stepped closer. Lowered his voice. "We can handle this as a family." I met his eyes. You already did," I said. That was the moment something shifted. Not loudly, not dramatically, but permanently. My mother stood up. "This doesn't have to turn into something bigger," she said. "It already is," I replied. Another pause. "We were going to fix it," she added. I nodded. How I asked. She didn't answer. Because fixing it would have required giving something back. And that was the part they hadn't planned for. "I'm not asking you for anything," I said. That confused them. I saw it. "I'm not asking for an explanation," I continued. Another pause. "I'm just taking responsibility for what's mine." My father looked at me. Longer this time. "You're making this more complicated than it needs to be," he said. I shook my head. "No," I said. "I'm making it accurate." The silence settled again. This time, no one tried to fill it. I stood up. "I'll be working with Aunt Vivian on next steps," I said. My mother's voice followed me. "You're going to regret doing this like this." I stopped. Turned slightly. "Doing what I asked." She hesitated. "Making it formal," she said. I looked at her. "It was always formal," I replied. "You just hoped I'd never see it that way." I walked out of the kitchen. Not fast. Not slow. Just done. That night I sat in my room again. Same space. Different awareness. I thought about what my aunt had said. About participation. And I realized something I hadn't seen clearly before. They didn't just take the money. They took advantage of the fact that I wouldn't question it. That I wouldn't look closely. That I would accept less, if it kept things smooth. And the most unsettling part wasn't what they did. It was how long I had made it easy for them to do it. I looked at the keychain on my desk. Then picked it up. Held it for a moment. And set it down again. Because for the first time, I understood what it really represented. Not a gift. A cover. And I was no longer interested in covering anything up. The paperwork didn't take long. That was the part my parents didn't expect. They assumed time would soften it, delay would dilute it. But systems don't respond to emotion. They respond to action. 2 days later, I sat in a small conference room with my aunt and a financial advisor from the firm. Neutral walls, a long table, a screen showing numbers I now recognized as mine. The advisor spoke clearly, no hesitation. "Now that you're 18, full control transfers to you," he said. I nodded. He clicked to the next screen. "However, there are irregular withdrawals over the past 4 years." Irregular, another precise word. Not emotional, not accusatory. Just documented. He turned slightly toward me. "We'll need your authorization to initiate a formal review." I didn't look at my aunt. I didn't need reassurance. Yes, I said. He nodded. Understood. Forms were placed in front of me. Not complicated. Just deliberate. I read each line. Not quickly. Because this wasn't about urgency. It was about accuracy. When I signed, nothing dramatic happened. No shift in the room. No reaction from my aunt. Just completion. After the meeting, we stepped outside. Cool air. Quiet street. My aunt stood beside me. You handled that well, she said. I just followed the process, I replied. She gave a small nod. That's the point. A pause. They won't take this well, she added. I looked ahead. They already didn't, I said. She didn't argue. Because we both knew. This wasn't new for them. Just new for me. That evening my father called. I let it ring once, then answered. We got a notice, he said. No greeting. No context. Just impact. I know, I replied. A pause. You didn't have to do that, he said. I leaned against the wall. Yes, I said. I did. His voice tightened slightly. This is going to create problems, he said. I nodded. It already did, I replied. Silence. You're involving people who don't understand our situation, he added. I almost smiled. They understand the account, I said. Another pause. That money was used for the family, he said. I closed my eyes briefly. I know, I replied. And you're part of this family. I opened my eyes. That's exactly why this matters, I said. He didn't respond. Because for the first time, the definition of family wasn't working in his favor. A few days later, the formal review began. Not loud, not public, but precise. Statements were examined. The transactions traced. Every withdrawal connected to a date, a purpose, a signature. There was no argument left in the numbers. At one point, the advisor called me. We've identified the primary uses, he said. I listened. Mortgage payments, medical bills, business funding. All real. All documented. All not mine to carry. Next steps would involve recovery options, he said. I nodded. What does that look like? I asked. He paused briefly. Structured repayment, he said. Asset liquidation if necessary. Practical. Not punitive. Just consequence. That night, my mother came to my room. She didn't knock. Just opened the door. This has gone too far, she said. I looked up. It's just started, I replied. She stepped inside. Closed the door behind her. You're going to force us to sell things, she said. I held her gaze. I'm not forcing anything, I said. Another pause. You're choosing not to fix it yourself. Her expression shifted. We were going to, she said again. I nodded. I know, I replied. But now you have to. Silence. Real silence this time. No room for soft words. No space for delay. She looked around the room. At the same furniture, the same walls. Then back at me. You've changed, she said. I considered that. No, I replied. I just started paying attention. She didn't answer. Because that was the difference. Not transformation. Awareness. After she left, I sat there for a long time, not thinking about the money. Thinking about what it had revealed. Power. Not loud power. Quiet. Structural. Then the kind that operates until someone decides to look directly at it. And once you do, you can't pretend it isn't there anymore. The first check didn't come from a bank. It came from my father. Handwritten, folded once. He placed it on the kitchen counter early in the morning, before anyone else was awake. I found it next to the coffee maker. No note, no explanation. Just a number. Smaller than I expected. Not insignificant. But clearly, a beginning. I stood there for a moment, holding it, not feeling anything immediate. Because this wasn't about the amount. It was about the shift. My mother came into the kitchen a few minutes later. She saw the check in my hand. Didn't look surprised. "We're working on it," she said. I nodded. "I know." She poured herself coffee. Didn't sit. Didn't try to soften anything. We'll have to make some adjustments," she added. I watched her. Carefully. "That makes sense," I said. A pause. She glanced at me. "You don't seem upset," she said. I considered that. "I was," I replied. Another pause. "I'm not anymore." She studied me. "That's not how this usually goes," she said. I almost smiled. "No," I said. "It's not. Because this wasn't about escalation. It was about alignment. Over the next few weeks, things changed. Not dramatically. Not all at once. But steadily. My parents sold the second car. Refinanced the house. Adjusted expenses. Conversations at dinner shifted. Less assumption. More calculation. My brother came by less often. When he did, he didn't stay long. No one mentioned his business anymore. That silence said more than any explanation would have. Mom, at one point he stopped me in the hallway. "You didn't have to push it this far," he said. I looked at him. "I didn't push anything," I replied. He exhaled. "It's affecting everyone," he said. I nodded. "It always did," I said. A pause. "You just didn't notice when it was affecting me." He didn't answer. Because there was nothing left to say that wouldn't require admitting something he wasn't ready to admit. Later that night I sat at my desk. The keychain still there. Unmoved. I picked it up. Turned it over again. The wrong letter. Still wrong. I thought about throwing it away. Then didn't. Not because it had value. Because it had meaning. Not as a gift. As evidence. Of what I had accepted. Before I understood what I should question. A few days later my aunt called. "They've agreed to a structured repayment plan," she said. I leaned back in my chair. "Okay," I replied. "They'll be monitored," she added. I nodded. "That makes sense." A pause. "You don't sound relieved," she said. I considered that. "I'm not sure that's the right word," I replied. Another pause. "What is?" she asked. I looked at the keychain in my hand. "Clear," I said. She didn't respond immediately. "Then, that's better," she said. We ended the call. That night my father knocked on my door. First time in years. "Can I come in?" he asked. I nodded. He stepped inside. Closed the door behind him. Not his usual habit. "I want you to understand something," he said. I waited. "We weren't trying to hurt you," he added. I held his gaze. "I know," I said. A pause. "That doesn't change what happened." He nodded slowly. "No," he said. "It doesn't." Another silence. Real. Not filled. Not softened. "I should have handled it differently," he said. I didn't answer right away. Not because I didn't hear him. Because I was deciding what that meant now. "Maybe," I said. A beat. But I needed to handle it this way. He looked at me. Longer this time. Then nodded. I see that, he said. That was the closest we had come to honesty. Not reconciliation. Not resolution. Just recognition. After he left, I sat there again. Same desk. Same room. But something had changed. Not in the house. In the structure of it. For the first time. I wasn't the easiest place to take from. And that changed everything. I didn't move out right away. That surprises people when I tell it. They expect a clean break, a dramatic exit. But real life doesn't always separate itself that neatly. I stayed for a few months. Finished paperwork, finalized the account transition, met with the advisor twice more. Learned how to read things I had never been shown before. Statements, allocation reports, tax implications. Words that used to sound distant now felt necessary. Not overwhelming. Just part of something I should have always been included in. At dinner, things were quieter. Not tense. Measured. My mother asked fewer questions. My father answered more directly. No one interrupted me when I spoke. That was new. Respect, I realized, often looks like silence. Not agreement. Space. One evening, my mother placed a small envelope next to my plate. Not a check this time. A document. We adjusted the insurance policy, she said. I opened it. My name. Listed clearly. No ambiguity. I nodded. Thank you, I said. She hesitated. Then, you should have always been included, she said. I looked at her. Yes, I replied. No anger. No emphasis. Just truth. That was the difference now. Truth didn't need to be pushed. It just needed to be stated. A week later, I moved into my own apartment. Not far. Still in the same area. Close enough to maintain contact. Far enough to define space. My father helped me carry boxes. Not much conversation. Just movement. At one point, he paused in the doorway. Looked around the apartment. This is good, he said. I nodded. It is. He set the last box down. You'll be fine, he added. I almost smiled. I know, I said. That wasn't confidence. It was awareness. After he left, I unpacked slowly. Not rushing. Each item placed where I chose. Not where it had always been. That felt significant. Later that night, I sat at the small kitchen table. Just one chair. One plate. No expectations attached. My phone buzzed. A message from my aunt. How does it feel? I looked around, then typed. Like I understand things now. She replied quickly. Good. A pause. Then another message. That's the only protection that lasts. I set my phone down. Looked at the keychain. Still in my bag. I took it out. Held it for a moment. Then placed it in a drawer. Not thrown away. Not displayed. Just stored. Because I didn't need to carry it anymore. If you've ever been the person in your family who was easy, the one who didn't ask for much, the one who adjusted, explained, minimized, then you understand this. Being low maintenance doesn't mean you deserve less. And being quiet doesn't mean you don't notice. The most dangerous thing isn't what people take from you. It's how long you believe it's normal. I didn't fight them. I didn't expose them. I didn't try to win anything. I just stopped allowing something that had been happening for a long time. And that was enough to change everything. If there's something in your life that doesn't feel right, something you've been told is just how things are, look at it again. Carefully. Not emotionally. Accurately. Because the moment you see it clearly, you get to decide what happens next. And that decision is where everything begins.